legitimate election you lose, then the loser should be prepared to be outside of government.
They are saying it themselves, including the deputy president, that you must create a role for the losing side, particularly when the country is split right down the middle. If Raila, for example, controls or appeals to half of the country, and Uhuru Kenyatta appeals to the other half, and you are on a winner-take-all kind of a situation, that doesn't add up. I am not suggesting for a moment that the winner accommodates the loser in terms of the proposals by Mudaura. No. Create that position with the status of the official leader of the opposition. Uhuru himself was the official leader of the opposition after KANU lost to the NAC administration. And he had his pacts, all right? And let me tell you, Anne, that thing worked, all right? And even in our current circumstances, the only reason we had a coalition government post 2008 elections was the intervention of the international community. They're the ones who said, look, guys, the only way we think, the way forward, is if you can all share.
So a referendum to that extent that creates the position of an official leader of the opposition is something you would advocate for before the next election?
Oh, yes, yes, with all the pacts that go with it. In fact, it's the same deputy president who was suggesting that the loser, who is a candidate, becomes like the official leader of the opposition, and his running mate also becomes the
So perhaps change the law, not to go to a referendum to do that.
Some of these things can be done without having to go through a referendum.
Okay. President Kenyatta is on the record in the now infamous videos saying, you know, he'll do his 10, the deputy will then come after him and do his 10. But by subsequently making statements like, my choice for 2022 will shock you. This past week, a statement you've alluded to in Thika, quote, only God knows who will become the next president. Aren't Ruto and his supporters bound to feel betrayed? And can the president be trusted to keep his word?
No, I think people are trying to misinterpret what the president is saying.
Did he say, I will do my 10, and then he will do his 10?
That in the campaign period,
yes,
all right, you do a lot of pronouncements, which over time you can review, all right? And in politics, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies.
So you're saying the president has reviewed his position in regard to
I have told you, and this is my disclaimer, I never purport to speak on behalf of the president.
As an observer,
I try to understand him, like when he says he doesn't care about who will be the next president, he's starting with himself. He's saying he, for example, is not interested in becoming or extending his term in office. That is what he's saying.
Fair enough. You're talking about reviewing positions. And, you know, there's been a history of politics of betrayal in this country. And particularly, Kikuyu politicians are seen to have been engaging in it since independence. For instance, 1969, I beg your pardon, you can look at the Kenyatta and Oginga Odinga relationship then. 1976, changed the constitution group, similarly seeking to keep Moi out of power. Kenneth Matiba and Mwai Kibaki breaking consensus with Ford, which basically led to Moi being able to extend his rule for another decade. Kibaki tearing up the MOU with Raila Odinga. I mean, scenario after scenario. And at the end of the day, it is the decision of the politician to renege on his word, but it is the people, the everyday community who pay the price. Is the president not now in 2019 continuing with that culture?
I don't know what you mean by reneging. the president can promise the deputy president, but the president has one vote. They can sit across a table and agree that I'll support you. That does not guarantee that he will convince the rest of us to support him. So I have not had the president go back on that one, all right? But we, part of the Mount Kenya, Central Kenya leadership, are quite clear that there was no MOU between us and William Ruto.
Why would Raila Odinga then trust you, listening to your interpretation of those events? Or any other politician from any other part of the country trust the leadership of the Mount Kenya region?
The reason people have supported the handshake is the stability, the peace, the calm, the ability for business to continue without disruption, and that is what people are supporting about Raila Odinga. You know, and some people are making funny presumptions. This August, next week, we will have 3 more years because the election is held every second Tuesday in the 5th year. We will just have done 2. There will be 3 more years. Now, a day in politics is a very long time. Of course, I've had people talking about how they're preparing for 2022, the way they prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ. I think that is blasphemy.
Okay. Why has the president, do you think, not called a PG of the Jubilee Party despite calls from, you know, various sections of the party to do so?
Because his focus right now is not about politicking. His focus is about his agenda for universal health care. What has the party got to do with the delivery of services? His focus right now is about delivering on food security, on manufacturing. You have seen how many companies of late he has been to revamp and revive: KCC, Rivertex. Last week he was with the Bidco Group. You wonder, when these people go around the country talking about development projects, the Tanga people, have you ever seen them accompanied by the line minister? Have you ever seen them being accompanied by the implementing officers like the PS or the engineers?
Is all that not true?
That is called politics.
Because those Tanga people are members
when
of
the
the
president
Jubilee
goes
Party.
to launch Rivertex, he goes with the line minister, he goes with the line PS, he goes with the line parastatus.
Fair enough, but that is the evidence I'm putting to you,
Right.
that all is not well within the
No,
Jubilee
he has no
Party.
interest
Is the
in-
president afraid of sitting against his own
No.
members and hearing the truth
They
about
have
what's going
issued
on
a
in Jubilee?
statement through the spokesperson that the politics of the party politics is not their priority for now.
He remains the chairman of the party on whose back he rode into power. Surely he is equally accountable to the members of parliament from that party. In any case, the projects that he wants to drive will need to come to parliament.
It is not his business to call PGs.
Oh,
They
whose
have
business
a
is it?
majority leader in the House. They are free to do their own caucusing in parliament. They have, if it is the party, they have the party secretary general, who, if they have issues, like we are seeing of late, if you have counties who have issues, they come to the party headquarters. Surely. You
So-
don't
so
expect the
perhaps-
president to be micromanaging petty squabbles here and there.
But
How?
so since you do not believe it is the business of the president to call a PG of his own party, so his deputy should feel free to go ahead and do that.
Why hasn't he called it? Why didn't you ask him that the last time you had this interview with him?
Well, I asked him about the parliamentary group meeting and he said he had a discussion with the president about it.
And they would be doing it at their own time. Correct? Actually, you should have asked him that. You know, like you asked him several questions about how he's about to be assassinated. I don't know how somebody said the president cannot leave it to a thief. You should have asked him whether he himself can leave this country in the hands of a thief. And there's no time I ever named any names. So those who are suggesting it is them I was referring to, the guilty are always afraid.
Do you see blood lines, you know, in the context of the handshake? having, you know, the president working with, if you like, the biggest loser or the opposition, quote unquote, being problematic for good governance? Does it foster a scenario where a dictatorship could very easily take root with nobody with the political clout in position to hold government accountable?